Okay, this is going to be a quick run through of a discussion of the CIT 161 syllabus. Hopefully you've already read through this and completed homework 0 related to it, but there's some high points and particular things that I kind of want to hit. So I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. I'm just going to talk about it real quick. So this is, of course, a 100% online class. There is a health and safety section that is required on all syllabi currently related to COVID. So if you do have to go on campus, you'll want to be aware of the guidelines and procedures related to that. My name is Wayne Beach. I'm your instructor for the course. Hopefully you have watched the bio on myself. So that you know that I'm an adjunct faculty member and I work full-time at the University of Kentucky in their Central IT department. But if you need to reach me via email for this course, my address is wayne.beach@kctcs.edu, and this phone number I've listed is actually my office number at the University of Kentucky, but since I am still working remote, that will ring through to Teams on my laptop. So you can reach me either way. If either way is of equal convenience to you, I would recommend sending me an email. I will probably see that a little bit quicker than I would the fact that I have a voicemail. Shouldn't need it for this course, but I do have a mailbox in room 213 of the Newtown classroom building. If you need information on the division coordinators and or assistant dean, that information is listed in the next section. As far as accommodations in the classroom, as it says here, if you need some type of accommodation in the classroom or in testing, you work that out with the Disability Support Services office, and then if an accommodation is approved, then the DSS office will contact me directly. Moving on, it's kind of a little sensitive here, changing pages. Seems to want to jump many pages ahead, which is really annoying. Okay, so there's page 2. Here's some general places you can go on the web to get information about different things related to BCTC. The next thing we have is the official course description and the competencies. Again, I'm not going to read all this to you. Hopefully you've already looked at it. But there are a series of courses, currently 3, used to be 4, referred to as the CCNA courses, so Cisco Certified Network Associates, and CIT 161 is the first course in that series, referred to as Introduction to Networks. So if you complete your assignments, read the material, do well in the course, the things listed under the course competencies should be some of the things that you are able to do once you complete the course. As far as course materials, a big part of this class is going to be a piece of software that you get from Cisco called Packet Tracer. That currently runs, it used to run only on Windows and Linux machines. They added Mac OS about 1.5 years ago. So I have a Mac and it seems to run pretty well. All of you have a Blackboard account and all of you have an email account, both supplied from KCTCS. We will be using both of those heavily, and you should really make it a habit of checking each of those at least once a day, if not multiple times a day. The other thing is having high-speed internet is going to be useful to you. And then also you're going to need a webcam. That might be handy if we set up a meeting, but it's going to be required for the proctoring of your midterm and final exam if you decide to do those proctored remotely at your home or somewhere else. As far as textbook, there's no textbook that you have to buy because the course material is going to be available in netacad.com. I'll have another video that talks about how to access the curriculum, the material. However, hopefully you've already gone through and completed the process of establishing your netacad.com account and have at least logged in to make sure you can do that. If for some reason you prefer a physical book, or maybe if you travel and it's more convenient to carry a book with you than your laptop, here is information about the physical textbook that goes along with the course. It is basically almost identical to what you will see online. So you don't have to buy that book. But again, I know some people do prefer books. As far as class policies, it's your responsibility to remain current in the course, and you do that by logging into Blackboard and checking your email, again, at least once a day, and also, completing your assignments and turning them in when they are due. Okay, no-show. For an in-person class, the no-show policy is something like if you don't attend the first 2 classes, the instructor can drop you from the class. When you have a 100% online class, we are responsible for giving an assignment that substitutes for this, and basically there's a kind of give me quote test called Homework 0, which has been assigned and is due on January 20th. And basically you say, yes, true, I have read the syllabus, and that will count as your no-show. If you do not complete that by January 20th, you will be removed from the class as a no-show. And once you're dropped, you cannot be re-added to the class. This is a policy I have, or at least a request I make, and that is when you send an email, in general, an email should have a good subject. For one of my classes, I consider a good subject something that has the course number in it, and then a description of what you're asking or what you need help with. Something like help or CIT 161 help is not necessarily a good subject. But, I'll give you an example here. CIT 161 - problem with packet tracer 2.3.4. So I know what class you're in, and I know what you're having a problem with, and I can deal with that. Academic integrity policy is outlined in the Code of Student Conduct, but basically, the work you turn in should be completely completed solely by you. So, this deals with what would historically be called cheating. I do not anticipate recording any class sessions that would have students in it, but if you're interested in what the policy is, you can read about that in the link provided. BCTC equality and unity statement is listed here. That should be in all of your syllabi. As far as class requirements, here I'm supposed to outline what are the different components, and I'll spend a little time talking about this. So you will have assignments that are labeled, homework 1 or HW1. These are assignments that are created by me. A big portion of this class will be something called packet tracer activities. And we'll talk about packet tracer in more detail. But basically, these are activities that are in your course curriculum. When I talk through how to use Netacad, I'll point this out in more detail. But basically, you download a packet tracer activity file, and then you take it into your packet tracer software, and you answer questions, do configurations, issue Cisco iOS commands, that type of thing. And then those are graded. Most of them are graded by the packet tracer software. Not necessarily all of them, but most of them. There will be some activities referred to as labs. These are typically things that if this was 100% in-person class, we would do in the classroom on physical equipment. They will either be done on your own computer or on something called the NetLab, which I have not given you an assignment for yet, or you may do them, a few of them in Packet Tracer. So those are just labeled labs instead of packet tracer activities in the curriculum. And then you will have these things called module group exams that are, and you can think of module as a chapter. When I first started teaching this, they called them modules, and it kind of annoyed me and was hard to get used to saying. And then a few years later, they started calling them chapters, which was great. And as of like a year and a half ago, they're back to calling them modules. So used to, you had a quiz on each chapter or each module. What they do now is they group them together into what they call module groups. And the module group will be 2 or more modules. And then your test will be over whatever modules were in that module group. These will be taken online through netacad.com, which, if you're not familiar with yet, you should be in the near future. And then you will have exams. Typically, you'll have a midterm that I create, and then you will have a final exam, which is online, made by Cisco through netacad.com. There was a period of time where the testing centers were closed. My understanding is, at least for the time being, they may be open again, or they may open up in February. But we use proctoring software. We used to use something called Proctorio. We're now using something called Respondus, which is sometimes referred to as a lockdown browser. And we will be using that if you choose to take your exam at home. Like I said, you will have to have a working camera and microphone to be able to use Respondus. The other option is if the testing centers are open, you can go to the testing center. But for the last year and a half, I think all of my students have chosen to take their exams remotely using whatever proctoring software we were using at the time. As far as your course grade, about a year ago, BCTC started having a mechanism to calculate and enter midterm grades into PeopleSoft. So there are instructions or a link to instructions on how to look at your midterm grade when the time rolls around. Again, that's about halfway through the semester, around the time, either slightly before or slightly after spring break, depending on the semester. As far as your final grade calculation, this is the breakdown, those module group exams along with your practice final. The average of that will be 40% of your grade. So that's the biggest chunk. All the other remaining things are 20%. The way they're grouped together is your final will be 20%. Your homeworks, labs, and packet tracer activities will be 20%. And your midterm exam will be 20%. So that's the breakdown for the course. As far as grading scale, this is, quote, the hardest it will be. By that, it means I will calculate your final grade. But I will look at the grade distribution, and there might be a slight curve, if you will, at the end of the semester. A lot of times, if there's some 88s and 89s and some 90s and 91s, and then there's a drop from 88 down to 84, then most likely I would say 88 and up is an A. So this is the, quote, hardest it will be, which is a standard. 90 to 100 is an A, 80 to 89 is a B, etc. As far as makeup work or late work, I expect the assignments to be due at the end of the day and submitted to Blackboard by 11:59 p.m. on the day they are due. I do understand things do come up. You may have required work travel or something like that. I have had a few students get COVID, things like that. If that happens, the sooner you can notify me, the better, and then we can work out how to and when you would be allowed to submit the makeup work. Also, if you're consistently late on assignment, I might cut you some slack the first couple of assignments, but if you continue to turn in late work, then you will have a penalty for late work, and that penalty typically increases based upon the number of late assignments you have turned in the past. As far as the withdrawal policy, you probably know that up to about the midpoint of the semester, you can simply go into PeopleSoft and withdraw from your class. But after the midterm date, you have to have instructor permission. And I do understand or realize that there are some instructors that will basically say, don't even think about asking me to withdraw from the class. If you're in the class after the midterm. I'm kind of the other extreme. I feel that the decision to withdraw from the class is a personal decision for the student to make. So I will give you permission to withdraw up through the last day of class, not finals week, the last day of class before final exam. We might talk about it. I had a student who was probably still one of the best students I've ever had at BCTC, and he was in my database class, and he walked up to me about 2 weeks before the end of the semester. I could tell he had a drop slip in his hand, and I asked him, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I want to drop your class." And I said, "Why? You have an A." And he's like, "Well, things have gotten kind of busy in my personal life, kind of busy at work. I was just taking this for personal growth. I've gotten out of the class what I want to get, so I want to drop." And I was like, don't come to class the last 2 weeks. Come take your final, and, you probably already have a B in the class, even if you don't take the final. And if you do take a final, I'm pretty confident you'll end up with an A in the class. Well, I don't really have time to drive in from Versailles to take the final, so I would like you to sign my drop slip, which I did. But like I said, that's a situation where I discussed with the student, are you sure you really want to do this? Are you sure you want to give up what in my opinion was minimal effort to get an A in a class? And he said, no, I want you to sign my drop slip. This page has some additional resources that are available to you. The two that I want to talk about is the free tutoring. There is free tutoring, and in the past it has been for some of the 100 level CIT classes, which did include CIT 161. So if you get stuck or you would like to kind of get a different presentation of some material, you might check out the tutoring. And the other thing is the Respondus support. If you're in the process of taking a test and you have issues, there are ways within the Respondus browser that you can contact and chat with somebody from Respondus right then to get any assistance that you might need or to resolve any problem you might be having. The contingency plan doesn't really apply to this class because we're already 100% online. But if you do have some in-person components or some in-person classes, I left that in here so that you could be reminded of it. And the last thing we have here, the last page, is the tentative schedule. We might get a little ahead or a little behind. But I've taught this version of the curriculum for several semesters now, so it should be pretty close to what we're actually doing. Week 8 is your midterm exam. Those dates listed should be Monday through Thursday of that week. That is the time frame that you have to take your midterm exam. Of course, BCTC still has a full week spring break at this point, which is week 10. The reason I say still and at this point is UK has basically eliminated spring break for students because they just see it as a way for them to leave campus and get COVID and then come back. But BCTC still does have a spring break. And then down here at the bottom is your final exam. It will be administered Monday through Thursday of finals week. So those are just picking out some of the important dates there for you. So in theory, you've already read this, and I didn't get anybody. It was alluded to in the Homework Zero test that if you had any questions about the syllabus, you should have already asked me. But if you have questions now or at any point about the syllabus, please just email me.